Hi there. Good evening, everyone. Hi. My name is Beth. Forgive the Notes app notes, but that's what I have to do. My name is Beth Miller, and I am the Director of Marketing here at Golden Gate University. It is my pleasure to welcome the members of the San Francisco PR Roundtable, the IABC, our distinguished panelists, and guests to our campus. We are delighted to see you here. Before we get started, I'd like to take just a moment to tell you a little bit more about GGU. Just as we have for more than 120 years, GGU is committed to meeting the educational needs of San Francisco's working adults with flexible undergraduate and graduate degree and certificate programs taught by scholar practitioners. A GGU credential gives students the relevant skills needed in today's competitive job market. We take pride in our long-standing history as a cornerstone educational institution in San Francisco, some might say the anchor educational institution, Provost Majid, dedicated to cultivating the next generation of business leaders within the Bay Area and beyond. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we are now enrolling students in our upcoming summer session, which starts in mid-May. So if you've been thinking about taking a class or starting a degree program, we'd be happy to welcome you to GGU. As a student, you can learn more at our website, ggU.edu. And now it is my honor to introduce you to Molly Walker from the San Francisco PR Roundtable. Welcome, Molly.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're so happy to be doing this tonight. This is a relaunch, and we'll see how it goes. So we need you, and we love seeing you all. And there's even more people who wish they were here, but couldn't make it tonight. So we're thrilled, and we're so appreciative to Golden Gate and Blodwin and Sue-Ann for making this happen. Because they came and said, "You want to do this together?" We said, yes, we'd love to. So we're thrilled. And I also just wanted to thank in particular, we had an interim board for the PR Roundtable, and the people on that interim board have been Paul Rose. Paul, will you like hail or stand up or do something so people know? Yeah. And then Brenda Kahn, who's taking my photo right this minute. Sally Hames. Sally, right? John McDowell, who can't be with us today, who is getting an advanced degree at, in Stockton at UOP, I think. And I think whose idea maybe was to do this. Why don't we just do an event, he said. Darylyn Davis, and finally Warner Johnston, who is moderating today's panel. And also, yeah, and there's one more person I really want to make sure, and there she is. So Iolantha Denman, otherwise called Io, is our SFIBC representative as well. So we're a three-prong operation, and that's it. And there's me. Thank you. And I'm handing this back over to Warner. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Warner. I'd like to invite the illustrious panel to sit. Most of us got the memo for earth tones. We're going to start just a little bit of a preamble. Everything that got you here tonight and all the questions that I'm going to read were all generated by AI.
And for most of my career, I've been a serial technology founder, so have been tangentially involved in the writing space for some time. I co-founded a company called Scripted.com, which is a marketplace for businesses to hire freelance writers. At one time, we had one of the largest writer communities on the internet, about 80,000 freelance writers, and thousands of writers were getting jobs through our site. And the site still exists today. It was acquired. And I'm currently working on a company called Hamlet. And so what Hamlet is doing is taking public information from city council meetings and planning commission meetings and turning that into actually useful information for city residents, because I don't know if you've sat through one of those things, but they're like 4 to 6 hours long and they're extremely painful. And what residents need is easy to understand information, but it's not just useful for residents, it's useful for other private parties. And so Hamlet is working on solving the problem of making public information easier to understand. I'm a big tennis player, fan, et cetera, big sports fan. And you asked, how do I define AI? AI is the collective knowledge of humanity accessible through the internet.
Hello, does this work?
No.
It does not work. How sad. I can project. Hi everyone, I'm Mallory Cloutier. I am PR and I have built my entire career in technology PR. I kickstarted my career in Boston and I've been in the Bay Area for about 10 years. I've worked with small startup companies, I've launched companies, I've led companies through IPOs, and I currently lead global PR for some household name companies that you might be aware of today. And the core of my portfolio right now is not only launching AI products, but also really helping them navigate the questions that arise daily of what is responsible AI, how are we defining that, how are we in our jobs, and especially myself as a agency leader, how are we empowering our team of 150 employees to use AI in a very thoughtful and transparent way with our clients. And so when I think about define AI, I really do think AI is here to make our lives a lot easier. So I don't know if that's a good definition, but that's the definition I'm sticking to.
That's
today.
a great definition, and I think that you play a very interesting role here, especially with the makeup of our audience being in PR. So we're going to come back to you a little bit later about AI, but let's turn to Matt.
Mine works. Yeah. I was going to hand it to you. My name is Matt Burton. I'm here because I've focused the past 18 months of my life on artificial intelligence. I've had a couple of lives and careers because I follow my passions. I do things that really, really interest me. That means when I was young, I studied writing, and when I found out it's hard to be a writer, I got an MBA. When I got an MBA, I went and took care of wealthy families. Because my wife is from Palm Beach, I went there. So I've had an interesting career, spending about 20 years working with wealthy families, looking at financial markets. But when I made that one choice, I left something out there. I did work in technology in the 90s. So as a writer, I had to make a living. I started working in tech in Silicon Alley in New York City. It was the most exciting time of my life. I was in startup companies that didn't fail, but also didn't IPO. That was the catalyst for doing an MBA. At this point in my life, with a son that's raised, that's 26, 27 years old, I'm looking at the most exciting time ever. And the way I define AI, and the reason I left 20 years in finance is this. AI is an imitation engine. Where my whole career has been focused on human beings, I agree with what Mallory said. It should make our lives easier. I agree with Sunil. It is everything that we have done and everything that we know accessible through the internet. And it does require knowledge and responsible action on our part. And it doesn't replace us, but we need to be involved, and it does augment what we can do in life. So now, I run my own very small company. It's me. I'm a founder of a company that is focused on teaching people about AI, consulting with companies that are transforming, and building a product that can help people. That's me.
Well, thank you, everybody. And also, Matt, that was a great segue to the first question, which is, how is AI hiding in plain sight?
So I'm going to say, short answer, Google Maps, Siri, Netflix.
That was a wonderful short answer. We'd like to expand the tweet, and can you go into a little bit more detail?
So I appreciate that. I'm afraid of talking too much, so I gave a short answer. So thanks for asking a little bit more. AI has been around us for years, and I love history. My father, after his first career in the military, became a historian. He took a GI Bill, became a historian. I love history. And if you look at the history of artificial intelligence, it goes back at least to the Industrial Revolution. It goes back at least to Great Britain. And it doesn't go back specifically to a man, although there was a man building an engine that could do math. But it really goes to a woman, Ada Lovelace, who said, we can write algorithms that will make your machine do more complicated things. So to your question, Warner, where is it hiding right in front of us? It's in algorithms that are all over. They're everywhere. So when Netflix knows what to recommend to us, it's acting as a prediction engine. When we use ChatGPT, which is a newer technology, it's using the power of transformers that were developed at Google by a team there that's kind of no longer there. And it's a new kind of prediction engine where it's predicting the next most likely word. And what's wild is every time it predicts something slightly different. So you never get the same answer twice with generative AI, but you do with deterministic. So when people look at our data at Netflix, they can see our behavior. It is very clear what the behavior is, and it's really pretty clear what they should recommend to us. This is true at Walmart. It's true at Amazon. It's true with auto text when we're texting on our phones. Siri has also imitating us. It learned what language is. It can recognize our voice, and then it can give us answers. So it is all around us, everywhere. But for years, we haven't really controlled it. The companies that developed it controlled it, and they work with our data, hopefully to serve us, but also to serve themselves.
Well, thank you. That was a
Long
both.
answer.
It was both very complete and very scary. So thank you for that answer. Mallory, I'd like to turn to you because, as I said before, I think you play an interesting role on this panel because many people in the audience were comms and marketing professionals. So I have a little bit of a two-part question for you. First of all, how is your agency using AI, to complete your work?
Our agency, oh my gosh, is it working? Can we hear me? Mm-hmm. Yes, love it. Thank you so much. Our agency, the second that ChatGPT was launched, our agency said, use this, try this, experiment, because I think, we have to be ahead of our clients at every step of the way, and we need to be able to understand, how helpful or hurtful is this going to be to our jobs. And when we saw that, hey, this wasn't just a cute trick, like this is actually transforming everyone's approach to AI, it's transforming every single company's business plan, we then implemented an entire generative AI training that is mandatory for all current employees, and it is now mandatory for all incoming employees. And it really coaches our team not only to experiment and use in a very safe and freeing way, but it also, coaches us on how do we have these conversations with clients and how transparent are we with our use of this technology and the work that we do day in and day out.
So that's fantastic. And you touched on the transparency. It was actually my second question. So you were predictive there. That's a little AI joke. But talk to us a little bit more about transparency. I'll tell you that I spent a lot of time trolling the PR and the marketing channels of Reddit. I never contribute, I just like to troll. And there was this huge debate a few months ago. And the debate was, do you tell your clients you're using ChatGPT, whether it's developing social media posts or press releases? And somebody likened it to, I don't tell my client what version of Microsoft Word I'm using. I don't tell them the tools. How does Highwire treat that?
We tell all of our employees that, just to back up, I think, our responsibility as a PR agency, we are partners, we are consultants. Our business really is built on relationships and trust, right? And so I agreed with the statement of, you wouldn't tell your client what type of word you're using, but we do, and we are getting to a place where it is going to be part of our contracts of, how transparent do we need to be and what tools can we or can we not use in the work that we, build for our clients. How we coach our teams is, obviously we have a 4-pillar approach, if you will. And part of that is, you need to respect the copyright of all of this. Mm-hmm. And I think, as it relates to our clients, we tell them, yes, we are using Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity, but you can guarantee that none of these materials built for you are solely built using these tools.
That's a great answer. And I'm so glad you mentioned Claude. There was a news item today that Claude has actually is one of the most popular generative, AI out there. I'm probably butchering the words, but a quick question, just yes or no, before we move on. Has any client asked you not to use AI?
No.
Great. Okay. So, Sunil, I'm gonna turn to you. Your company is using public information, correct? And what I'd like to talk about a little bit is what are the pitfalls to using AI? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the number one thing we see with AI right now is, and this is obvious, it's not 100% accurate, but to really understand why it's not 100% accurate, you have to understand how it works. Okay, so part of it is there's two use cases for AI. Okay, so you're commonly and probably more familiar with, I like to make it interactive. How many of you use ChatGPT? Do we have almost everybody's hand up in the room? Not everybody's. So generative AI, as Matt pointed out, is what's called deterministic, as we sort of discussed already. But to reiterate, part of the reasons why it gets some math problems wrong is it's ingesting a corpus of data, and based on that data, it is guessing the next best word. So if you say the fox jumped over it has to have enough data to determine what the right answer is. And of course, they've ingested over the years trillions of data points that, hopefully it gets most generalized questions correct, okay? But it is subject to, getting things wrong, and that is through a parameter in their models called temperature, okay? So temperature allows it to, you basically can, as a user, ask it how wild you want it to be with guesses. The higher you set the temperature, the more prone it is to making wild guesses. If you set the temperature of the model to 0, it won't make wild guesses, okay? So this is something that's like in the weeds of the tools that you should just be aware of and how it works, okay? So temperature, very important. But the second use case is summarization, okay? So a lot of people are using AI to take long PDFs and other very, very long documents and summarize them. Now you would think, okay, this should be 100% accurate. It actually isn't. And the reason is there's a concept in AI called the context window, okay? So these AIs, for technical reasons, so if you remember when you had Dell computers, you would get like high RAM on your computers because it would work faster, okay? The context window is basically the AI equivalent of that, okay? So when you upload like let's just say a 500-page PDF, it doesn't store all of that information into memory. The reason is, otherwise you'd have hundreds of thousands of people with 100-page PDFs uploading it at the same time, and it would take too much compute power, and it would take too much resources, it would cost too much to do that. So the context window is a way where it basically, through a limited number of characters, it processes just a certain amount of information to make those summaries. So it's very, very bad at summarizing long documents. And so I want to draw this distinction between generation and summarization because it's very, very important. And accuracy, as a result, is at the moment compromised. So that's like the biggest pitfall with using AI, undoubtedly. So do not use it if your job depends on it to summarize long documents. Seriously, do not, and do not use it to generate like long form, like extremely complicated stuff that wouldn't be considered general information.
4 seems more accurate than 3.5. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair. It has a larger context window, and it's a better model that's trained on more information. So yeah, that would seem accurate. Yeah, Gemini has the largest context window, the Google product, so it's able to ingest 1 million characters at a time. That's the most impressive thing about the Google product, is the summarization should be better.
And sorry, I have a couple of follow-ups, but first of all, how many pages is 1 million characters? Anybody know?
It's hundreds of pages.
Hundreds of pages.
Yeah.
The temperature is really interesting, and I actually learned about this from you a couple weeks ago when we did a pre-panel discussion. Is there a way to change it manually? Like,
Yeah, you can prompt it and just make sure that the temperature is set to 0. And so like you can ask it, hey, what is your temperature set at right now? And just make sure that the temperature is set to 0.
okay, thank you. Before I go back to the panel to ask another set of questions, I asked ChatGPT yesterday to generate, I explained what this group was, and I asked them to generate facts that maybe we wouldn't know. You know, how AI is being used just in everyday life or in the world. And so I have a number of facts, but I'm just going to read one. AI's impact on archaeology. AI is transforming archaeological research by analyzing vast data sets, perhaps not correctly, and reconstructing ancient artifacts and sites. It can assist in deciphering ancient languages, identifying archaeological sites from satellite imagery, and predicting the locations of undiscovered archaeological treasures, revolutionizing the field of archaeology, which I thought that was interesting, and so do you, because I see a lot of nods. Matt, speaking of archaeology, actually, so Matt, you help companies adopt AI. Could you talk a little bit more about that and what the barriers to entry may be?
Yeah, I think the promise of AI is always that it will be easy. I love Sunil's answer just now about the summarization is not necessarily easy. So I find that people that take an interest in AI will want it to be easy. I realize I'm talking to all of you and you're using ChatGPT, so you must have found this out already. Have you found out that sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's hard, that it's wrong? Okay, so that's what I run into all the time. Some people wouldn't come to this room after finding out that something went wrong. Some people would say, well, it's wrong, it's not really ready for prime time, I'll wait. So you can run into that with some individuals on a team, but the people driving things forward will adopt these things and find ways around it. Like Sunil said, it's a language model. So LLM is a large language model. All these billions or trillions of data points are right now, with what most of us are focusing on, with generative AI, we're focusing on language and context windows and how many pages and how many words, and these get turned into tokens. So our language actually gets turned into something else that goes into a different kind of database, and like Sunil said, it doesn't get stored the way we read it or see it. It gets stored as tokens in a vector database, which doesn't have fields where you can pull it out in the same way. So it's approximating things. So anyway, what I run into a lot is if it doesn't work at first, some people will give up. But the people who choose to play with it and work with it, and I use the word play on purpose, the people that play with it will learn that it can do much more than we realize. I've seen people make animations with ChatGPT because they tell the tool that it can do it. And they talk to the tool like a human being, like an intern or like a child or like a friend or like a coworker. And sometimes they use very, very human techniques. They say, I have to make this thing work or I'll lose my job. Or I need you to make this work so I can get $100. They do funny things sometimes in prompt engineering, and sometimes the tool responds. Or they'll say, I want you to do this, and we'll say, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And then you can say, well, let me ask you this way. What method would you use to do this thing? And then it will give you a method, and then you approach it with that method, which it can understand with language, and then it can achieve the tool. So I run into people sometimes that get excited, but it doesn't work right away, so they want to stop. And then other people say, but what if I approached it differently? There's got to be a way to do this. Somebody must want to do this. Somebody must have created a tool I can connect to that would do this with the language front end. I'll talk to this, and it will talk to something else. So what I find is people that succeed are just excited, and they keep going. And people that don't embrace it get disappointed quickly and say, I'll come back later. But there'll be a separation of these groups over time. I'll stop there. There's so much to say.
And we will have a Q&A at the end, so we can talk more about. But that was great. There was when you were talking about prompting, I recalled that I read something a couple weeks ago that people tend to get better responses the more polite they are with the ChatGPT or any one of the services. But also something that you said just kind of prompted something in my head. The term language, like the word language, right? I just realized that while I like to think I know a little bit about how this is all, AI and how it all came about, I actually have no idea. When we talk about like language training, was it English? Are there ChatGPTs for Spanish or French or Farsi? Like, what?
Yeah, and again, I'm going to refer back to one thing Sunil said. Each company that's competing in this space may have different unique capabilities. So if you look at Google and realize how long they've been on the planet working at things and inventing things, they've really developed lots of capabilities at Google, and one of them is language. They do work with more languages because they've been around the world longer, serving more audiences, and it mattered to them. I don't know a full answer to the question, but I believe everything was trained originally in English, and yes, now there are other models for sure. Yes.
Mallory, I feel like this might be a good segue. Oh, once you have a microphone. Before we were chatting at the table and we were talking a little bit about DEI and AI. And I think you made some really interesting points about how, well, I mean, that everything seems to be very white-centric, if you will. Like, or maybe that's the point I made, that, just a couple weeks ago, Google got into a bit of trouble with how they were generating imagery. But could you talk a little bit, because I know this is something your company has looked at. Could you talk a little bit about DEI and AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think, what a topic, and please stop me, because I think we could just go on and on about this. I can't comment on what happened at Google, but I'll tell you this, they're not going to be the first one. Every company is going to run into that issue. And I think, the way that our agency looks at it in terms of, we're helping clients launch AI products day in and day out. We are building written materials, graphic materials using AI content. We're in it, right? And so, the way that we need to think about it is, again, how are we coaching our employees to really think about this and, really have that DEI lens in everything that we produce for our clients. And I think that's so important, and to really think about, who is the audience based off the tools I'm using, where is this data coming from, and even thinking about your own prompting. How is your prompt, is there bias in your prompt? Are there ways that you can perhaps partner with someone else to ensure that the materials that you are building with AI is representative? And I think that's how we're thinking about it from a team perspective. And I think broadly, I don't know if this will ever be solved, right? I don't know if there's ever going to be a point of success, but I think the exciting thing for all of us is that we're at the beginning of generative AI, right? We're at this new place where generative AI is coming, and if you're not in it, good luck. And I think as it relates to DEI, we all have the awareness as consumers to really be aware of our bias, and if we're building, we have the awareness to understand, am I being representative of all communities, not just one community?
Would the other panelists, Sunil, would you like to steal the microphone back?
Yeah, Mallory got my sweaty palm on the microphone there, so I feel bad for her. On the subject of on the subject of DEI, I mean, look, models are trained on data. I think the biggest question mark is, there's two types of large language models right now that are emerging. There's closed source and open source. Okay, you're probably familiar with the terms. So the closed source models right now, OpenAI, GPT, all the GPT models, GPT-4, et cetera, are closed source. That means if you asked it right now, what data are you trained on, it won't tell you. Ask it a million different times in a million different ways, it won't tell you. So you see copyright law, you see Sarah Silverman or whoever is the person of the day suing them, that's because they are circumstantially alleging, which may in fact be true, but we will never know, that their data was used to train that model. Open source, on the other hand, you're fully aware of its weights and biases and what goes into those models. And so, you know, there's two different sort of philosophical views of the world emerging, which is, are we, you know, going to build on closed source, or are we going to build on open source? And it's unclear which will win right now. But, you know, at the moment, everybody's the most familiar with OpenAI's models, and let's see how it plays out. We're still barely, you know, a couple of years into this, so that will determine the answer to the DEI question. In many ways, it's in some ways out of our hands.
I love this so much that these answers are like really stunning to me, because going back to what Mallory said about her company and her leadership and the leadership teams there, they know that this is so important that they need to get there ahead of their clients. They're also helping their clients launch AI products every day. What a fabulous place to see the comings and goings and the responsibility. So I'm just still absorbing all of that. Sunil's comment about open source, open models, and closed models is fascinating, right? So I'm going to comment really quickly about two companies. One, Anthropic with Claude, they spun out of OpenAI. And as the story goes, they spun out because they wanted to be more safe. They wanted to be more responsible. They wanted better red teaming. They wanted to...
I'm sorry, could you explain what red teaming is?
So my way of describing it, in the world of technology, there are people that do good things. They're good actors and they're bad actors. Black hats and white hats. The red hats are brought in, they're engaged by a company developing something to try and break systems or to try and make things go wrong. They'll look at a language model, for example, at Anthropic, and they'll say, could a sole bad actor use this model to create a chemical bomb? Let's make sure they can't get the information they need from the model to do bad things. So Claude was very much focused on developing a product that could be launched without those sort of implications. Now, OpenAI cares about those things too, right? Nobody would want to launch a bad thing. So when you have a closed model, you can give attention to these things, but you can also do so with an open model. So that's one set of thoughts. Another set of thoughts in a different company is Meta. While I was working in Menlo Park, not far from Facebook, they changed their name to Meta. Why did they do it? Because at the time, cryptocurrency, before Sam Bankman-Fried and all of the things, the metaverse was the thing, right? Crypto was the thing. And Facebook wanted to be very directly involved in that space where they saw human beings getting together in technological spaces. This is on the heels of COVID, that they saw a new opportunity. Changed the company name. They weren't really focused on language models, but they have embraced open source now, because one thing about open source is it's a way to compete with Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, because with open source you can develop much more rapidly. You get a global workforce that's working with you, creating something together like they did with Linux. I don't know a lot about open source, so I can't state the next part, but I'm sure they're worried about DEI too. I'm sure they're looking at weights and biases in the models. And then I'm going to end on what Mallory said. No matter what tool is that you use, we, the humans, still have a responsibility on our teams and in our leadership to understand the state of the art. Where are we now? And things, now is this moment now, because tomorrow's a different thing. And next week is a year away. Like, things are happening so fast that you have to stay on the now and be responsible, which is one of my themes. Like, human beings have to stay at the center of this. We do have a responsibility, and this is a key moment in time, because this will go very rapidly, and tools will get embedded, and we will be using them, so we should participate in their formation.
Well, thank you. That was a great, very great.
Sorry, I got excited.
You leaned forward too. I mean, it was fantastic. Very emotive.
It's real.
I just want to switch gears a bit and maybe like dive a bit, ask a more practical question from our PR representative here. You know, for somebody who may be in the audience who does marketing or comms, who's a little bit of a novice, how would you suggest they start to integrate or play around with, you know, the tools of AI?
I would think about it as, how could you clone yourself? I joke with my team all the time, like, what they ask, what kind of help do you need? I'm like, I just wish I could have a clone. And I think of AI as that. Like, if you could do 2 jobs at once, what would that look like? And I think that's where AI comes in. And so how practically, what does that mean for me in my day in and day out? Well, you know, the world of PR, we all know, moves very, very, very quickly, right? And you have to be an endless source of ideas. Sometimes that comes easy, sometimes it doesn't, right? Let's be very honest. And AI comes in, AI is a quick thought partner. If my human thought partners are not available, I will fire up Claude and just start jamming away. And I'm not looking at Claude being like, boom, you did it. Let me just copy paste. But often there is a word in there, a sentence that I'm like, there it is. There's my opening. And here's how I've now just doubled what I've been able to do today. And I'm meeting what my clients are asking for and helping them stay ahead. So again, I think of it as, from a practical sense, how do you really wrap your arms around it? Think about, where do you need to double yourself? Start there.
I mean, you had me with quick thought partner, you know, like I dropped the mic in my head, I walked out, I was like, panel done. Like, that's it. I mean, that's really what, and you're so right. There are times where I've been tongue-tied or just needed somebody else to kind of bounce an idea off. And I sometimes take an email that I'm about to write to a client and feed it in, not looking for grammar help, but just to be, you know, to see if there's something else I'm not thinking of. I mean, it's just quick thought partner. You heard it here first. I'm the first person who's ever said quick thought partner on this panel. So, but speaking of practical applications, Hamlet, which is your, take the mic.
Got it.
Your company is taking huge swaths of public information and feeding it in, pulling a lever. Talk to us a little bit about that, and how is that ultimately going to benefit the public?
Yeah, I think, well, so when I originally set out to do this company, I was a city council candidate in Orinda, where I live. And I became sort of frustrated by the quality of public information. And let me just tell you, your local officials, there is no way they're reading through 50-page budget documents and doing that in the right way. And I was just squinting my eyes, looking at this thing, trying to figure it out. And you know, and these people have to do it every 2 weeks before council meetings, and they're making important decisions about your city. That felt like that process just needs to be better. And so I think it's good if public officials use it. It's good if residents get information from it, because then they don't have to get their information from Nextdoor or Facebook. It's good for residential real estate developers who rely on planning commission meetings to make important development decisions. And if you want to understand broadly, you know, which cities are developer friendly and which cities aren't, that's now kind of, you know, much easier to do with AI than it was previously. So these are all applications we're thinking about for Hamlet. I don't know if that answers your question. It was succinct, but.
Well, tell me, talk to us a little bit about where Hamlet is today and where you see it in 2 years.
We're early stage. I just started this company in late 2022. We're 8 people. We have, you know, 7 paying customers that are private entity customers paying us for data that's generated from city council meetings, primarily real estate developers. We also have a couple of government customers that use us as a transparency tool. Where we take their city council meetings and publish them after generating summaries using AI for their residents, and they share it with their residents. One customer is Saratoga, California, where, you know, coincidentally I grew up, but another customer is a Peninsula-based customer that we're going to be announcing soon. But over the next couple of years, I see us incorporating other types of public information that may seem not easily accessible. Just one example I'll throw out there. I get really excited about information that's generated in podcasts. So there's now 1 million podcasts, 1 million, and more are being generated every day. Only, the top 2% are ever listened to or see the light of day, yet every public official goes on these things as a vanity project of some sort. And they're saying important things oftentimes, yet no one will listen to those things. And so an example of how I would use AI is to take those podcasts, download the audio, generating transcriptions can automatically be done using AI now. And then you're basically creating a corpus of data that's searchable. And so it's the ultimate public accountability tool. And I'm just using podcasts as an example, but there's 1 million other data sources out there that are just waiting for eager professionals to tap into if they can use the tools correctly. And I hope you walk away thinking about data sources you can use and ingest and process using AI.
That was a great answer, and it actually made me just realize that we're missing a 5th chair on this panel. We should have had a reporter here to talk about how they're using AI, because everything you just said, I'm just thinking ChatGPT, New York Post. I see a hand up.
Yeah. I mean, so if I'm understanding the question correctly, I think podcasts are one of the biggest source of misinformation because they're basically completely unchecked. You and I can start one today and spew whatever we want and publish it in, major podcasting platforms. What AI could do, theoretically, I'm not saying I would do this, but I know other people are potentially working on it. You could take the audio from the podcasts, automatically transcribe them, and essentially not only summarize them, but extract data from them saying, so-and-so public official said this on this date. But imagine that times every podcast on the planet. And so you could get every interview that somebody has done and say, hey, what has so-and-so said over the past 10 years? And you can, extract patterns and see what they've said. And so, in a way, it's the ultimate accountability tool, and I hope it's used that way.
Can you do a fact-check AI model?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Let's do it.
I mean, this is definitely being worked on, by the way.
But fact checked by, that's a great question, but fact checked by whom? Or what? That doesn't work. I checked.
And even when I've had people actually write the article, they'll come back and make sure it's not AI generated.
If you're really curious to see what's being worked on, go to a site called There's an AI for That. It's a directory of all the AI tools that people are working on right now. There's an AI for that. You can search it. There are literally tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of developers working on AI projects right now. Go in there, search for fact check. Somebody is probably working on fact checking. There's just, yeah. Anyway, there's a lot of very, very smart people working on stuff in the space, and you should hopefully walk away from this thinking that, and understanding that it's actually easy to work on these types of projects, and you should. It's a worthwhile use of your time.
Well, I definitely know that our audience has some questions. I just have a few more questions for the panel that I think you'll all benefit from. First of all, Matt, something I was just thinking about, and I'm throwing this question to you, is we hear a lot about American-based products, or I'm assuming, ChatGPT, that's American, right? Claude. Are there international AI that we're not hearing about?
Well, Warner, given that you're traveling to Paris tomorrow, you might want to stop by the offices of Mistral, who's an open source LLM developer. So they're competing, you could say, with Anthropic and OpenAI and Google. And they're developing very quickly.
I am going to Paris tomorrow, and I will be sure to look into that and then write it off. So thank you. All right. Well, I have.
Sorry, a book you might look at, AI Superpowers, Kai-Fu Lee. So a more serious answer. Yes, what they're working on in Paris is very important, but China is working on all of these things. State-sponsored, aggressively. AI, they intend to be the AI superpower, and they don't have political parties. They have a state system.
Is there an AI, like a Chinese AI that's available for the public use that we could access?
Sunil? So I don't know the answer to the question, but WeChat, very significant app in China where they can do virtually everything. And they're monitoring people's behaviors through WeChat, including monitoring how many hours of gaming their kids do at night, including where the people go, what they buy, what they shop with, everything.
For those of you not familiar, WeChat is what Elon Musk wanted to make Twitter, or the plan, like the whole X, kind of like multi-platform, everything. That's what, you know, that is. Could I ask you a question? I have a question for each member of the panel, and then another one, and then we're going to open it up. First of all, Matt, should I be afraid of losing my job?
No, because you're curious. There's a great scene in Ted Lasso. I like stories. And he talks about be curious. Have you guys seen Ted Lasso? Any of you? Do you remember a scene in the pub where he's throwing darts and the future of the team is on the line? Who owns the team? And the handsome bad guy that thinks he's a true badass.
Rupert.
Yeah, there you go, Rupert, who's always trading spouses. Rupert believes he'll win the game, but he's not curious about Ted Lasso at all. You're not going to lose your job because you're curious and you're playful, and anybody that's willing to play and try things is going to stay in the game. And what Mallory's doing with her team, by saying, when you onboard here, you're going to learn something about these tools. You're going to form some version of mini-me of yourself. You're going to think about what you do during the day and what parts of the day you could automate, where you can hand off a task, and what parts of the day you can brainstorm with a co-pilot, with a friend. Anybody that does that stays in the game, and anyone who doesn't probably will lose their job.
Thank you. And Mallory, turning to you, how do you think AI is going to impact, you know, us? Well, not me, because obviously I'm curious, so I'm safe forever. I'm good. Matt, you heard it here. And this is a podcast, just FYI. But how do you see it changing, you know, the public relations field in the next couple of years? Is it going to impact staffing levels, or talk to us?
About to make a staffing joke about my day today, but no, it will not impact staffing levels at all. I think it will unlock wild creativity. That is what I'm seeing. That is my hope. I mean, when I saw the preview of OpenAI Sora, which was their visual creation, I mean, I will not swear, because this is, you know, I mean, it was jaw-dropping, and I thought, how, you know, as I'm pitching concepts to clients, I'm going to be able to make a visual representation of this.
This
and
is so exciting. She's so right.
and
It's amazing.
and you know, and I'm not trying to put now cinematographers out of work, not at all, but I'm trying to bring our work to life in a very visual and exciting way. And so I think that's one example of how AI is going to make the PR role even more valuable and more creative.
Well, I'm sure all of us appreciate that answer. But Sunil, which industries would you say are not as favored as, obviously, the PR and marketing? What industries do you think may not exist? I mean, 20 years ago, you know, travel agents was a lot more. Talk to us.
I mean, I'll take the slightly other, more negative side of this, which is, well, basically, if any of your job involves repetition, let's just say if a majority of your job involves repetition, you're in trouble. You're already in trouble. So any repetitive task, AI can do better than you already today. And right now it's just digital tasks, but pretty soon it'll be physical tasks as well. The other thing I would worry about is, you know, spending time on things like data analysis. Like if you're looking at data and, you know, looking through Excel spreadsheets and trying to process data, you yourself, it can do it better than you already today by a lot. So anything that's repetitive, anything that's analysis oriented and numbers oriented, it's going to outperform you. So where does that leave you? That leaves you with, conversely, may not may not seem intuitive right now, but interpersonal relationships matter a lot. The ability to get things done matters more than ever. Who to call to get the scoop on a story? Who to reach out to get things done? The ability to get things done in that way is actually going to be more valuable in this construct than you might think. And so I think we're going to shift back to a more relationship-based economy. But for stuff that's repetitive and that sort of thing, yeah, it's just not going to be valuable.
Matt?
I love it too, and there's a word that I've come to like for this, and it's relationship-based, and it's also everyone's career expertise becomes part of your ability to curate responses, So it's editorial. It's looking at the brainstorming that's done or the data analysis that's done, and this plays out in lots of fields, including medicine, including like detection of cancer. So these machines can look at that type of data and much more quickly discover the possibility of cancer in an individual, but the experience of trained doctors still comes into play, verifying the results. So humans still matter, relationships matter in that curation piece.
So I have one last question I'm going to ask each of the panelists. I'm going to answer it first, so to allow each of them to think about it, and then we'll open it up to questions. So my question to each one of the panelists is: Are there 3 tools that you use on a daily basis? And you'll hear me answer, so you can, but don't steal my answer. I use Copy.ai, which is built on the ChatGPT platform. It's great. I do a lot of client work because it allows you to organize everything into folders and clients, and you can even build like tone of voice documents so that if you're reviewing something, whether it's like a draft of a speech or a blog, you can have it review past things and give you tips. So that's one of my top ones, Copy.ai. The second one is Sunil just talked about data. Julius.ai, you could upload Excel spreadsheets and have it, you could upload a lot of things, but have it analyze data, and that has been really helpful for me. And then the third tool is a new one to my arsenal, and you have to be open to and willing to change, because it's just everything changes so quickly. Matt gave it to me. It's Perplexity. That's kind of replaced for me ChatGPT and Gemini in kind of doing like real world research right at the time. And what I found with Perplexity is that you should always ask, if you're ever asking a question like, I don't know, like what's the top 10 blah, 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 or any type of factual based prompt, ask, whatever service you're using to provide citations. And then you have to check those citations. ChatGPT loves to create New York Times URLs for some reason, but Perplexity, I've started using it more and more actually in the past couple days. I had to do research for a client, and every one of the URLs was accurate, and it pointed to what it said it pointed to. So those are my top 3 today. Yeah. Sunil?
Yeah, I'm trying to give a non-ChatGPT answer because it really truly is powerful, and I don't mean just ChatGPT, like that's the surface level tool. It really is unfortunate that was everybody's introduction to AI, because they think of it as synonymous with AI, but AI is actually, the technology is built using multiple things. I won't go on that rant right now, but but within there, if you are going to use things, just try practically uploading a spreadsheet of large data sometime in the next week or so. Take like a million lines of data, something crazy. Find some CDC data or COVID data for fun, which is all publicly available. Upload it and ask it hard questions. Ask it to produce graphs and things like that. Really think out of the box. that's my practice case for you. If I were to give you all homework, is download like CDC data on something, upload it to ChatGPT, and ask it hard questions and ask it to generate graphs. You'll be blown away. Adobe Firefly, simply the best image generator out there, relatively cheap. But I'll stop at those two because, you know, we're building AI tools, but funny enough, on like the consumer AI tools, I don't use them every day. You know, like there's not enough to do there. I mean, like it's, yeah, I'll stop at Firefly and like using ChatGPT for now. I'll, this is not to say we don't use AI, but we just use it in different ways, so. Yeah.
I use Claude purely because one of my biggest clients competes with ChatGPT, so I will not. So I use Claude. I also use Otter AI. We're all nodding our heads, and as I'm going back to what I said a few minutes ago. This is how I replicate myself. Someone's going to take my notes. Someone's going to read me a transcript and automate that for myself. And the last one.
I'm sorry, I'm actually not that familiar with Otter AI.
Sorry about that. It's a recording tool, and so I was this close to ottering this panel right here, and it would have transcribed everything and produced a real quick transcript within minutes.
Like how Zoom has that functionality now.
Exactly.
And for those of you who may not know, Zoom now has an AI summary that you have to click when you start a Zoom, and it'll email you a summary. It's actually, it's been pretty,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
So, sorry, cut you off.
No, that's okay.
You have a third
and
one.
To the consumer note.
You actually owe two more. You have to give 4 because you only had 2. Sorry, that's just, it's the law of panels. You know.
Alexa.
Oh.
Is my client obvious now?
Investor in company X.
Yes, producer of hardware on my kitchen. Yes, Alexa. I mean, yes, I use Alexa the way that we all use Alexa, and I also am trying to use it for my Amazon shopping.
Got it.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
Oh, Matt, you are the last, and then we're going to go to Q&A.
I love all the answers. I do. I don't. I don't necessarily use generative AI tools every day. AI is all around us. The tool I use most often is Otter, because I find, you know, I've had a lifetime. My entire career has been consulting. My entire career. All of the financial career was based on sitting across from a person or a family, which could be several people, and taking time to look in their eyes. And so this is what I love about this. Otter lets me not think about the note-taking, and I can really focus on people. That's the perfect union. I can focus on people that matter, the interpersonal, because the tech is doing what the other part of my brain would be doing, writing notes. So Otter is the tool I use most often, having meetings and teaching. I love ChatGPT and the other tools. The students I've been teaching sometimes explore things more than I do. So my students have shown me in the recent couple of weeks that a tool that is a front end, it's called Poe, P-O-E, as in Edgar Allan Poe. Poe's a very interesting tool because people that are new to AI, like my students, will want to try Anthropic and ChatGPT and Gemini. But all of these things start free, and then pretty quickly to make it do better stuff cost $20. So with Poe, you spend $19.99, and you get all of these tools. You don't get Adobe Firefly, but you get Dolly. You get Stable Diffusion. And I'm naming tools that let you create very sophisticated images. So Poe lets you do the images tools. It lets you use all of the language models. And that means that the $20 you're spending on Poe is really worth about $100 or $200. So I haven't been using Poe, but I'm going to, because it lets you see the responses, and they're different in the different tools. Other tools, Descript is a video editor and podcast editor. I love film and video, and it used to be that you cut videos in certain ways, and now you can cut them differently. You can cut video with the transcript. This is another AI feature. You can record a recording of yourself, and any of the ums and ahs that you don't like, you can cut out easily. They can be automatically taken out. And the whole section you don't like, you can cut out. You can also have it clone your voice so that when you forgot to say something, you can type the words and it will say them for you. Because part of what I'm doing is consulting and teaching, I can use Descript to make better video products or podcasts. And I'm going to tell you the last tool, I think this is enough. Midjourney I love. A lot of people don't like its interface because you have to do funky stuff like the gamer kids do and go in this thing called Discord. But now it's on the web because it's changing in the alpha model. But Discord is amazing, and I love human stories, and again, I love people. And if you use Midjourney and you type as you think, you explain things as you see them, it will create images for you. And they're remarkable now. And if you look in people's eyes in Midjourney, you'll be blown away. So those are the tools I use most. Midjourney, Otter, etc.
All right, thank you. So we'll start with 3 questions, and we'll see where we are, because we have a hard stop. So does anybody have a question for any one of the panelists? Yes, sir, over there. I'm going to bring you the mic. Thank you.
So earlier it was mentioned that information is intentionally being withheld for public safety, so people can't make weapons or whatnot. How wary should we be of information being proactively shared to shape public opinion, per se?
Who wants that? I mean, Sunil, I feel like that's all you.
Yeah. Just to be clear, right? We're talking about certain models, the way they're trained, they're closed, and that information's not available. But there's options with models. There are probably open source models where people are willing to share that information, which is obviously terrible in its own right. But I mean, in the example of Gemini and the stuff that happened there with Google that Mallory alluded to earlier, you could say that they were proactively, perhaps even deliberately, manipulating their models to be a certain way, which some stories have come out about that the past week. I mean, we don't make the models, and I have no knowledge of the OpenAI models. Nobody here works for OpenAI, so we don't know is the unfortunate answer to your question.
I think a concept that is interesting, and one of my clients introduced last year, is this concept of a nutrition facts label. And so if you're launching an AI product, we look at all of our food and we see what's in the box. And I think if you are building an AI product, I do think that there is an element. You can use this label maker or not, but I think the concept of you should be transparent about what is in this product, what models were used. I think the concept of model merging is coming up. You brought up a fantastic, never-ending conversation of is it open, is it closed? And I think whatever you're building, whoever your audience is, be very transparent about what went in this, who built this, and to our conversation about who is looking at the data, perhaps think about how can we have a conversation about bias and that transparency right there.
I would say there are models and there are tools and there are people. You asked a question, how wary should we be? It's like, be wary, be very wary. Because tools can be made with a certain intention and then used with different purposes, different intentions. So I mentioned a cloning tool. Descript is not the only cloning tool, and I mentioned image generation tool. Midjourney is one, Stable Diffusion is one. But when you can take a source image and a source voice and make a new video of any person, including any political candidate anywhere in the world, then you can fake anything. And we are faking all those things already. Not me, but these things are being faked, right? So be very wary.
Anybody have a more light question? We're going to take 2 more.
Well, my question also has to do with theft. There was a piece to. Well, there was a piece today about these lovely young women taken off of some Christian website who were then cloned onto porn sites. But I was told in a panel 6 months or so ago by somebody who was testing out a bunch of AI products for IABC, and he said to be really careful about putting in stuff from the company that you're writing for that might otherwise be removed and used by somebody else in a bad way. So how do you protect yourselves, or is that something you think about?
I am thinking about my answer.
Well, there's one very practical way to protect your data from, any of the AI bots. So it is a choice to have your website, if you have a public-facing website, to keep your data open, because these LLMs rely on public data. You can actually put on your website what are called no follow tags and no crawl tags. What that does is it indicates that this data is not legally available to crawl by Anthropic, OpenAI, et cetera. We are seeing this being commonly implemented by basically news outlets. If you go to the Wall Street Journal, go to their HTML on their homepage, it will basically say, do not allow OpenAI, and it's like you could literally copy and paste that code and put it on your website, and the data is no longer available to crawl. So that's your practical answer. With regard to your question on image faking, not to say that that's horrible, like what's happened, and a lot of horrible stuff's happening. Variations of this, unfortunately, have been happening on the internet for decades. Decades. Celebrities having, fake images, inauthentic images being put out there. Unfortunately, this is just part of the human psyche on one part of the internet, where now with the technology, they're doing it at an accelerated pace. But sadly, this is one that's going to continue on.
Quick question about prompts. We've spoken about it. I use ChatGPT, very simple prompts, and I know it can be so much more and could be more complex. Any suggestions where to help get guidance on prompts? And then I just want to plug, my friend does a great AI newsletter called cliffnotes.ai. It's fantastic. It gives tips, tricks, tools. He's in Oakland, so I highly recommend it. So anyway, thank you.
Who wants to talk about prompts?
I can say quickly, I'm stealing from Mallory, I think, maybe. Or all of us, I don't know. One way to think about these tools is one way to look at a language model is say, this is a young employee. This is an intern. This is a new employee. I need to train the employee. So if I want something done, or I want to partner on a project with this intern, with this new employee, I need to give it some direction. I need to say, I'm the head of marketing. You're my assistant in marketing. This is my role. This is your role. And this is how we like to do things. Give it a sample. So upload a sample. And then say, this is what I want from this. And I want it so just give clear instructions. That's what I would say.
I would say think of it less, yes, it is a prompt, but don't tell yourself like, okay, it's prompt time. I think of it as like, this is your quick thought partner. So have a conversation. And yeah, you're having a conversation with yourself, but as it continues to share more, that'll evolve how you're thinking about your original prompt in the first place. And I think that'll unlock a little bit more of what you're looking for.
Yeah, to that point, you can ask it for suggestions on how to prompt it.
Yes.
Basically it'll tell you how to prompt it. If you don't, I think a lot of people stop at the first prompt and say, this sucks, I didn't get what I wanted. Right. And actually just tell it, this sucks, I didn't get what I want. How can I ask you this? Give me 10 options on how I can ask it to you where I can get what I want, and this is what I want. And it will actually tell you how to prompt it to get what you want. So don't stop at one, keep going, and ask it what, explicitly, and tell it what you want.
Thank you. We have one last question.
Thank you. Mallory, so you work with Amazon, and you love talking to them. I was shocked when I saw some of the reviews on Amazon, product reviews, generated by AI. Your thoughts?
I am not going to comment on that because that is a portion of the business that I don't work on. And so I have my own personal thoughts that I'm happy to chat with you off the record. But I think, Amazon is, just like a search site, Amazon.com, right? And I think, someone asked a really interesting question earlier, and it got me thinking about, like, how do we really trust all Yelp reviews? We don't. And I think, it goes back to, how we look at what's created, whether it's on Amazon, Google, Instagram, TikTok, good God. I think we need to almost look at it as like with a Yelp review eye. Is this for me? Is this something I subscribe to? I hope that's not too overly a generic of a question, but I think, there's just going to be an overwhelming amount of content created out there. And I think that's the responsibility for us as consumers, is to really understand, and be aware of what we're consuming.
I'm sorry, we're really going to have to wrap it up. We are guests here. But let me tell you, you have been a wonderful audience. You've been a terrific panel. I've been a charming host. And we do have one last thing. We are going to do a quick raffle as you came in. So I'm going to ask our illustrious panel to... Okay, so how many are we picking out? Oh, we're picking out 9. Okay.